What's the most unintentionally offensive thing you've ever said to someone? I'll start. So this morning I stopped by Walmart on the way to work to pick up something, and I was running a bit late. I'm white, and as I was leaving the store I was walking quickly and went around a black woman taking her cart out. She says to me jokingly, "Why are white people always in such a hurry?" Now, what I meant to say was, because I'm running late to work. What flew out of my mouth was, because I have a job. I did not mean anything by it, it just came out totally wrong. She was not happy and let me know it in a very colorful way. I didn't even try to explain. I was late, and just boogered out of there. While attending the wake for a cousin who had hanged himself, I ran into his brother at the buffet table and asked, "How's it hanging?" I then proceeded to stand there with a half-eaten deviled egg in my hand, not breathing for a small eternity while his eyes welled up. Oh god, mine's basically the same. This happened like a week ago and I felt like a total duck. My friend at school, her dad had hanged himself about a week before that, and she was the one who found him. Her best friend had rung and told a few of us, so we knew what was going on. She'd been coming to school for a few days. Pretty much every day she had gone home early in tears, trying to deal with it. So, we're having a rare cheerful moment, chatting about procrastination and all that. She's like, "I'm an absolute master of words with friends. I don't have it, but my friend lets me play on hers all the time." I say, "Oh cool, yeah, that's a great game, but I prefer hanging with friends." She gives me a shocked face. Obviously doesn't know what hanging with friends is. She's like, "Oh yeah, but I'm alone when I play it." And I'm reply with, "No, hanging with friends. The game. It's by the words with friends, people. It's basically Hangman, you know, where you guess letters and each time you get one wrong, you draw the picture of the guy, huh?" At this moment everyone was looking at me like. She looked at me like. I looked at me like. She started crying. I felt like a huge duck because I just hadn't caught on, and oh god, it was bad. How has the bartender not cut you off yet? Guy had cerebral palsy. I don't know how many arguments I've had with some of the girls I used to work with about one particular customer. No, he isn't drunk. If you took the time to pay attention to him you could clearly see that he has had a stroke at one point. Yeah, but he slurs his words and walks funny. That is because half of his body is partially paralyzed. I was waiting to cross the street when a Rastafarian dude jaywalks from the other side, and upon getting in voice range asks me, "Are you a don't walk, eh?" I shrugged and replied, "I go when the white man says I can go." That's not offensive. It's hilarious. Your baby dead yet? God, I still cringed with horror. Complete mental processing breakdown. Said to a woman who had suffered multiple miscarriages, "I'm going to hell." What I was thinking I would say was, "How's the pregnancy going?" But what was going through my mind was, "She's had a lot of miscarriages." To be fair, I was like 9, and not all that socially aware. But still, God, what a thing to say. And with absolutely no malice intended whatsoever. Spent months in absolute anguish and embarrassment. Crazy how the brain spits things out. When I was a kid, I said to my 80-year-old grandmother, "You're so old, why are you still alive?" Because I eat the hearts of bratty young children to keep my strength. Not super offensive, but definitely really unintentionally rude. To preface, I had just dyed my hair pink. I had gone to Subway for lunch, during the lunch rush. It was super busy, there were tons of people in line, and it was very loud in there. When I got to the guy who was putting toppings on sandwiches, this happened. Me, lettuce and tomatoes. Guy, I didn't hear. Me, louder, lettuce and tomatoes. Guy, looks confused for a second, then starts putting lettuce on the sandwich. About 60 seconds later, I realized he didn't say, "I didn't hear." He actually said, "I like your hair." He said, "I like your hair," and I responded with lettuce and tomatoes. Anyway, now I can never go to that Subway again. I work at a theme park. On one of the rides there is a 600-pound limit per raft. An overweight woman, weighing at least 300 pounds, and her 4 very overweight friends came to the ride. I looked at them all and then instead of telling them that they couldn't all ride together, I looked her in the eyes and said to her, "Sorry mom, The weight restriction is 600 pounds. Unintentionally implied that she looked like she weighed 600 pounds. It only really went into offensive territory when you started doing the DG and singing, "You ain't getting on this ride, fatty," over and over. My nan used to wear this really lovely perfume and she always smelled wonderful. 5-year-old me wanted to compliment her about it, and so, with all the tact of a child, I told her that she smelled. I remember she got really upset and told me off for being mean. She rushed off for a shower and I didn't know how to explain I was actually trying to be nice. 15 years later, I mentioned this to my mum. My nan struggled with cancer that eventually took her life when I was still about 5 or 6. "Oh, now that makes sense," says mum. Apparently throughout her last days, Nan would constantly ask my parents and the nursing staff to smell her, request to be bathed multiple times a day and to be constantly doused in her favorite perfume. They never understood her paranoia and dismissed it as a sign she was going senile. TLDR, 5-year-old me tells dying grandma she smells trying to be complimentary. Paranoia haunts her until her deathbed. At my first job in high school as a restaurant dishwasher, most of my co-workers were middle-aged men and women who had made a career of waitressing, cooking, bartending, etc., and had all been working at this restaurant for 15 or 20 years. I had been working there for about 3 years, and for those 3 years I had been constantly pissed at all of them. I would come into work every day and work non-stop until 2 in the morning, scrubbing dishes as fast as I could, while all of the waitresses would literally take a 10-minute smoke break every hour. It was also my job to help out the waitresses when they got too busy, so every now and then they would ask me to make a salad or a dessert or something for one of their customers. On a particularly busy day, the head waitress had just come back in from her smoke break and asked me to make a sundae for one of her tables. I dropped what I was doing, put the sundae together for her, and when she saw it she said, "Madman, this sundae doesn't have enough hot fudge on it. You really need to learn how to make sundaes better." Something about her tone and the fact that I knew I was going to be working until 2 AM again that night set me off. I shouted back in front of the whole kitchen and wait staff, "Why? It's not like I'm going to be working in a restaurant the rest of my life." Then I made her a new goddamn sundae. My dad got electrocuted once. Oh cool, did he get superpowers? Haha. No, he died. My dad got electrocuted once. A guy at my workplace has a hook in place of a hand. One day he was lifting a rather large box, and I said, "Do you need a hand?" I was mortified when I realized what I said. I'm a monster. Hits stuff with hook hand. Lived in a shutty apartment with my wife and one of our dubious upstairs neighbors comes downstairs. He's one of those homeless types, so he came in with no shoes and limping. He was 17 and derelict. Anyway, we're smoking a J, and he's telling us about his shitty living conditions and how him and the 3 other guys upstairs used to live in our place before we moved in. Apparently there was an entire roster who lived here, and in the little tiny 10x15 room I took for my studio, 3 guys used to sleep there apparently. Me. Wow, that must have been weird if one of you was gay. Him. Startled. I am gay. At which point he shows me his hands where he has the words homo hobo tattooed on his knuckles. I'm too late to this thread, but I'll throw this out here. I was in software quality assurance for a pretty big company, and one of the challenges any company that does international sales faces is usually localization. If you develop your software and UI on a US install of Windows, then you'd run into wacky issues when converting it to work on a different language, especially if you hadn't written your software to handle the various character sets and encodings, etc. So, moving on, we've been having this recurring issue with localization on Arabic, Hebrew, Japanese, whatever localizations where the text doesn't go left to right, it goes right to left. The UI is messing up in exciting new ways, and each time we fix a problem, the same symptom shows up with a different cause. It's been going on for a week now, and the latest few problems have been specifically for our Israel targeted builds. Half fix after half fix has failed, and I'm frustrated. Fed up, I proclaim to my group that we need a final solution to this Hebrew problem. Super crickets. The conference table. Realizing what I had said and desperately trying not to make obvious eye contact with the two Jewish members of my team, I stutteringly try to get back on track. I mean, we really need to get this issue fixed for real, guys. 10 years later, I still cringe. My friend was asking me to edit some pictures of her in Photoshop and make her prettier. I don't normally use Photoshop for editing pictures, and because I didn't think I was very qualified, I said, I'm not that good at Photoshop. Playing chess with friend whose brother shot himself a year before. He puts me in checkmate. Jesus Christ, I'm just going to go home and shoot myself. Wasn't me, but witnessed the most accidental offensive moment ever. When I was about 14, some friends and I were hanging around the neighborhood pool. We noticed a lifeguard helping some younger kid carry a plate of food and telling him over and over, hold it with 2 hands, sweetie, hold it with 2 hands. Well, my friend at the time Matt yells, hold it with 2 hands, you retard. Pool goes silent. We go silent. The child had Down syndrome. Even if he doesn't have Down syndrome, a good number of people would consider it highly offensive to shout that in public. Once I had just met a girl who I had heard had tried to commit suicide about a month earlier by sleeping pills. I didn't know it was the same girl at the time though, and I was racking my brain to think of where I'd heard the name when my friend introduced me, and then after introductions it came to me and I was like, oh, sleeping pills. Yeah, that was awkward. Another time I tried to shake hands with a guy in a wheelchair who clearly had no arms. It was just instinct to put out my hand at first meeting. Basically I fail at first impressions. I was buying tickets to a movie and the box office women asked if I wanted to donate $1 to help some kind of children with cancer fundraiser. Without thinking I immediately blurted, no thanks, I hate children. She had such a look of shock on her face I can still remember. I still don't know why I said it. I rarely take the bus, but the one time I needed to, I was a few pence short. I asked a kind black lady if I could borrow 10 pence to make up the fare. The buses only accepted exact change. She obliged and we exchanged smiles to each other. I had earlier bought a bunch of bananas and thought, why don't I offer one? I said, here, have a banana. Her face dropped slightly and not another word was spoken. Awkward as hell when I realized how it may have come across. How are you supposed to offer bananas to black people then? Through the bars.